ain't nobody hotter. Thank you for tuning in with your girl Tasha. We handle business, we ain't about to gossip. Here to uplift ya, now it's time to boss up. Hey, hey, tune in, nah, you can't miss. Making sure that you get your daily wake up list. We yelling bam, good vibes, good energy. Bam, being authentically me. Shout out Little Mo and Trinity, that's mini me. Gotta keep it in the family. Hey, your girl Tasha, YGT, time to get it hype. Hey, this is what you need. Hey, go ahead, turn it up, this my jam. Being authentically me like bam. With your girl Tasha, hey, let's dance. Being authentically me like bam. Yeah, now it's time to get it, time to get it. Wake up, time to handle business. Yeah, hey, now it's time to get it, time to get it. Wake up, time to handle business. Yeah, we about to get it live with your girl Tasha. Hey, like bam. Let's go, let's go.
Hey, 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 it is your girl Tasha, known to the world as the Tasha Carpenter, but everybody calls me your girl Tasha because when you hang with me, what? It is like you are hanging with your girl. And my favorite word is bam, because I'm always being authentically me. Now, I'm going to tell you guys this morning, oh my goodness, it is chilly. It's cold. I'm freezing in here. I don't know what's going on, but that fall weather is coming. And I am so excited today for the show that we have. You guys know that we are in the middle of, well, coming up, not even saying in the middle of, but election season. And it's so important that you know who your candidates are. And I'm so excited today because today I have a candidate coming in from Charles County. But unlike we usually do, instead of me bringing that candidate on, we're going to go and cut to a video that's going to tell you a little bit about today's special guest. So hold on, and I'll see you back on the flip side.
Respected by Democrats and Republicans, Judge Patrick Devine for Charles County. Raised by parents who worked in the Kennedy administration, appointed to the circuit court by Governor Larry Hogan, Patrick Devine has always been the people's advocate, bringing unity to Charles County. Experience, fairness, compassion. Vote to keep Judge Patrick Devine on our circuit court.
All right, guys. So there you have it. You know who the special guest is today. Today we have Judge Patrick Devine joining us from Charles County. I'm looking for one of the banners to help remind you guys about making sure right now this is that time that you want to share, you want to invite, you want to just let everybody know that we are here. So, hey, Patrick Devine, how are you?
How are you? I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm awesome. Now, I know that you're a judge, and if I go in the courtroom, I wouldn't be calling somebody Patrick, but when people come and hang with your girl Tasha, we just use first names. Is it okay for me to use your first name?
Totally fine to be informal. I'm good with that.
Okay, we got some people popping in here. We have Kathy Jo Redmond saying good morning. Also, Barbara Wright saying good morning. And let's see who Derek Terry says, out here sign waving and wish I could ask some questions. Well, Derek, you could definitely ask some questions in this manner. Just type your questions in the chat. As we go on, we will talk about it. So look, what I want you to first do for me is to just tell me about you. Sometimes it's hard for candidates or public figures and leaders in the community to stay away from talking about their business part, okay, or their professional part. I want you to just talk to people and say to them, good morning, Zembroda Anderson. Good morning, Michelle Ford. I see Charles County is showing up, guys. Share and invite, share and invite. Tell them about Patrick, the person, you know, where you grew up, things that you might like, hobbies, all that kind of stuff. Just give them a little bit about you as a person for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pandemic is on everybody's mind. And so just to let you know, I know everyone's struggling with it. I've got 4 children. My wife and I, we got 2 seniors in high school, a freshman in high school, and a 6th grader. So what is about me is dealing with what I think a lot of people are dealing with, having our kids go through school in a curtailed way. But I have been in the county now 30 years practicing, raising my children. I won't tell the kids this too much, but they're great kids. They do a fantastic job. I've coached them in all the major sports. So I know their world kind of, and that world is really Charles County's world. So I've been here practicing in the state's attorney's office for 5 years. And then I was in private practice for 25 years. Did some work trying murder cases for the public defender's office. And while they pay you, that's sort of a free benefit in a sense for them. But I've been around the county. I've taught over there in the school systems here. I've coached in the systems here. And I know there's a lot of problems across the country, but we really do have a great, great county. We've dealt with our problems well, our school systems, our court systems, the other things that sort of set us apart are running really, really well here. So to the degree you need to know something about me, know that I'm enmeshed in this county. And I think in a positive way, our county is doing things that a lot of other counties are struggling with, but we are doing it successfully. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. Awesome. Good morning, Terrace Coleman. Good morning, Jackie Bester. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Everyone, please share. Remember, we want you to participate too. We want you to participate. It's very important that you ask your questions and get your answers done. Well, I remember we were trying to get you on a little bit earlier, but of course, when you have 2 seniors in high school, you're doing that college preparation thing.
You're definitely doing that.
Exactly. I know, been there, done that. I got a junior in college now that's doing awesome, So let me see. You are a candidate, but you also have been appointed to the position for the past year and a half.
That's correct.
A lot of people, they don't do it that manner in every area, and some people don't understand that process. Could you please just speak to and explain exactly how the appointment process works within in the system, and also how you get selected to become a judge?
Absolutely. So what happens in the selection process is that any lawyer who is in the county can put their name in for the selection process. And it's fairly grueling. You drive across the state up to Baltimore, Prince George's County, out to other counties, Montgomery County, and the individual bars, the plaintiff's bar, the women's bar, Hispanic bar, African-American bar, have groups from their individuals who ask questions, and they evaluate you on the answers to those questions, and they make recommendations based on that. And then Charles County has its own committee that interviews every candidate. And then the governor's office calls down, and this governor has done it more than most governors, interviews every judge and says, what do you think of the candidates? And then the governor interviews all the candidates himself. And then after that process, he picks the person he thinks is most qualified. I was lucky enough to get picked for that process, as you said, about a year and a half ago. The next couple of months, they'll start the process up and they'll pick another judge. We have a vacancy now, and that will be filled by whoever puts their name in and goes through the process and is selected. But people from our county vote, our local bar association votes. All those people put in their recommendation, and the governor evaluates it. When he picks something somewhat unique to Maryland, once you're selected by the governor, you sit in the next election. And that's where we find ourselves, and that's where we are right now, coming up in November on the 3rd. So it's a good process.
Awesome. Kathy, no, we are not doing any call-ins today, sweetheart, but please leave your comments in the comment bar. I will share it. And Jackie Bester says that's a fascinating process. Now, part of that process that you mentioned involves vetting. What I know is I have seen people who have referred to you as the fully vetted candidate running for circuit court judge, is some of the postings I've seen from people. Can you explain to me what is actually the difference between being fully vetted and vetted?
I think what they're referring to is some candidates don't get through the process. They may put their name in, and then after an interview, their name may not go through the governor. So they get vetted, but they don't actually make it through the vetting process. And I think some people draw a distinction there because the process, whether it is people in our county, and the committee that finally sends the name up is made of just people from Charles County. Some lawyers, some religious people, pillars of the community that are selected to participate in the selection process. And I think people make the distinction, you can be vetted. If you're fully vetted, then your name goes through the process. If not, you sort of don't make it through the process. I think that's what they're talking about.
Okay, so more than one person can be vetted, but only one person can be selected by the governor. So there could be other fully vetted candidates, but you're the one that was actually chosen by the governor and rewarded by being able to be in a position for the past year and a half. Thank you for answering that question. We have a question from Jackie Baxter saying, how is impartiality ensured?
Well, there's a couple of things. Do you mean in the process or as a judge? Do you under?
Can you drop that clarification, Jackie, and I'll look forward to come in. I see other comments coming in. I'm going to be scrolling through them. I do have a list of questions too that I'm doing, and we want to do our best to fit every comment in. Matter of fact, guys, I always tell people, and this has been a pleasure working from home, that I'm not in the studio. So that means there's not a show after me. So I'm committed to be here as long as Judge Patrick Devine is committed to be here to get your questions in. So please know that we'll get your questions in, okay? I don't see anything that came back from Jackie yet before I move over, but I wanted to ask you, and Jackie, we're going to come back to your question, looking for your update. I wanted to ask you, what experience, you touched a little bit because I asked you not to go into it too much during your opening, but what experience did you bring to the table prior to being appointed to the judge job of circuit court judge during the past year and a half? And how did your prior experience contribute to your performance in the position during the past year and a half as well?
Well, so I've tried my first jury trial 30 years ago here in the county. And since then, I've been trying cases for that whole time. I've tried week-long murder cases and domestic cases that'll go 2 or 3 days. I have that experience to know what goes on in the courtroom, what to anticipate, how to try a case, about the rules of evidence. But I think more than that, I have coached all my children. I have taught in the school system at the college level here in this county. I think I've experienced what it is to make people understand what's going on in the process. If you've taught school before, you understand that to reach people and to make them understand is kind of a neat thing. And if you can do it well, it's really, really rewarding. Part of that happens in the court system. We have a court system which more and more unrepresented litigants appear for very, very serious cases. They may appear for a domestic case and say, we just want to divorce and divide everything equal. And you're like, well, you're going to have to file paperwork to divide that pension. And if you fail to do it, it's a $100,000 mistake plus. You've got to get everyone to understand. And when you're coaching kids or you're teaching in schools, you sort of understand that you've got to bring everyone along, whether they're going to settle the case or try the case. And my experience over these past years, I think I bring all that into the courtroom every day. And I think that's helpful because people want to know that they're being heard and they're being understood by the judge. That's super, super important for the integrity of the court. You've got to understand that. And when you coach and you teach, you understand how to get that across. That's sort of what I think I bring to the courtroom.
Okay. Are you hearing an echo? I hear an echo for some reason now.
I don't hear it from this end. I hear a little bit of a slowdown at the end, but not an echo.
Okay, hopefully I don't have anything going on. Jackie, I see your clarifying question, and actually it's in line with a question that I plan on asking going forward. So I'm going to hold off with getting your clarification up just for a minute. Now let's look at one of these other coming from, I'm going to try to bounce back and forwards between our viewers and you. So we have Zabronda Anderson. It's great to see you guys. Mr. Patrick Devine is a very, very upstanding citizen. He represents Charles County well. He has been such a blessing to my family in so many ways. Hello, I hope I said your name right. Hi, did I say it right? Zebranda?
Yeah, you got it right. Thank you very much. That was very nice.
All right, now we have Maria Thompson Farnham saying, Judge Devine has coached 2 of my children and offered to come into my kindergarten class last year to teach the children about the job of the judge during our unit on community helpers. Unfortunately, the quarantine began before this could happen, but his offer was greatly appreciated. Girl, get you a Zoom going. Go on ahead that thing. Get them kindergartners in there on a Zoom and have them join us still there. Okay. So let's see.
So I do go into the school systems before they shut down and did things with the kids. It's kind of nice. It's a big boost for the kids who think maybe I want to be in law enforcement, maybe I want to be a lawyer, maybe I want to be a judge. All those things are kind of cool when you're in the school system. So it's nice.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Here we go. Kathy Redman says that she can't type, girl. You better go ahead and type. So she typed. How easy is it to have your name sent to the governor by the CC Judiciary Committee?
So I think I indicated before, but it is a difficult process because when you go in front of groups, maybe there are 10, 15 people in a room, you've never met any of them, and any one of them can fire questions at you on any topic in the legal spectrum. And they do because they've got their interest and they want to know that you have a view on it, that you're knowledgeable on the topic, and they're going to make recommendations based on your answers. And you drive all over the state answering those questions. So it's kind of an honor to have the governor be sent your name. It's a nice recommendation.
Okay, and my understanding, just to correct me, is that your opponent name was also made it through that point of it, just was not selected.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so now what is the current makeup and experience of the sitting judges that are already circuit court in the circuit court for Charles County?
So Judge Janine Carrington Martin came out of Prince George's County, lives in our county, of course, and practices here some, but primarily out of the state's attorney's office. So she has a criminal background mostly. Judge West, who is our administrative judge, worked for Albert and Schreier, did a lot of civil work, did a lot of criminal in the district court, some in the circuit court. He has civil experience, a little bit of both, but he's now our administrative judge. And these are tough times because our court starts up for jury trials on the week of October 5th. So he is handling all that. And then we have Judge Greer, who comes from a primary civil practice, personal injury cases, civil stuff. His wife's a lawyer. We have those 3 judges. They all have a lot of courtroom experience, varies a lot, but we've got a good bench. I mean, I think, and people may criticize generally across the country. What I would say is when the courts are back up fully, come in and sit and watch. And I think you'll be impressed by the quality of how our judiciary in this county works. It's fair, it's accurate in the sense of understanding the cases. We do a good job here. I think that's the situation. And that's the makeup and the experience of our judges here.
Okay. Ms. Zebranda responded and said, we couldn't ask for a better circuit court judge, in my opinion, as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Now, I'm hearing that. Is your wife in the room with the volume up listening to the broadcast? Because I'm hearing the echo going back by any chance.
I'm in a room by myself.
Okay, I was going to say, turn the volume down if you got the volume up.
I've seen C-SPAN. I know when to turn the volume down.
Okay, I don't know what is going on here. So with this, being that you have served for a year and a half, what have you found, or what aspects do you actually like and or dislike about the current position?
Well, I'll say this. Having tried cases for 30 years, I understand how important it is to convey to a judge what the information you need him to do or to make a decision. And not in this county, but I've been in counties where the judges, maybe he's having a bad day, maybe he's a little tired, maybe he's got other things on his mind, but he's not invested in the case in front of him for whatever reason. He hasn't read the pleadings, doesn't expect or know what is going to happen, because he's read all the pleadings. that is a frustrating thing and often leads to bad outcomes for the litigants. So one of the most rewarding things is I get to go in, I get to prep it, I get to know everything about the case that I can know before the evidence is presented. And that way I get to do what I believe is the right thing from a knowledge base of hard work. That's a pretty rewarding thing. It's been a phenomenal experience for that reason alone, that you can make sure that the judiciary, which has a huge impact, is working. And that I can't understate how important and what a big deal that is, both for me and for the county. So it's a big deal.
Okay, all right. I think that I'm going to well, we have one more like type of general question, and then we'll get into, well, I got one coming in from the chat as well as one here. What is your actual and let me make sure that I pronounce it right. What is your views on pro se litigants handling cases before you in a courtroom?
So this is what I think about that. It's fine with me. It doesn't affect the amount of work I have to do. But often it can affect them in the following sense. They may not understand that when the court case is done, one of their legal rights ends with the end of the case. It may be a property issue. It may be some other issue. They may get through the case. I don't know that they've got a piece of property in Georgia or down in Texas, which is not marital property, but may have marital interest, and it's going to be divided. But if it's not raised, then someone loses out. So I'm very nervous about pro se litigants. I think for a small cost, every litigant ought to go and at least have a consultation with a lawyer, because essentially they don't know what they don't know. And the lawyer may say, you're in good shape, go in and get this done. But they may say, look, this is a $100,000 case. You're going to get 50% or you're not going to get it because you haven't raised the following issue. And I don't know to raise it, and they don't know to raise it. And that creates somewhat of a gap in what the court is supposed to have as the outcome of the case. So I like pro se litigants, ones without representation, but I worry that I may miss something because they don't know to present it. And I don't know them prior to the case, and it's not going to be part of the pleadings because they don't know to file it. So it comes at, you enter, it's okay with the judges, but it comes at some peril, is what I would say.
Okay. So for someone that doesn't know how to type, there is a book. Wait a minute. They typed another book. They typed another book before I got a chance to get to this book. The question says, can voters find out whether or not your opponents were in fact interviewed? It helps because the governor often depends on what neighborhood leadership has to say. Do you know where your opponents actually interviewed? And that's from Kathy Redmond.
I think at one point, my opponent was interviewed by the governor. I don't recall exactly when. I think whoever went through gets interviewed. And my recollection is that she got through the process and was interviewed by the governor. I think that's the situation.
Okay, so Kathy has 4 questions regarding your opponent, but we're here to talk to you about you today. Okay. So Kathy, I'm going to table your questions for right now. If we have some time and if Judge Patrick would like to answer them, I will scroll back and catch you. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to move forward at this point. So let's see. Actually, I know that I saw a post. Matter of fact, there's a couple of posts that I've seen by you that have generated a few of my questions. So there was a post where you said that you shared your enjoyment of seeing success of the family recovery and teen court since being appointed to the bench. At the same time, you expressed the need for additional specialty courts and made the plea for the voters to make sure that they cast their ballot for you in order to allow you to continue working towards funding for these courts to better service Charles County. So my question is, what success have you witnessed actually as a result of the family recovery and teen courts? I got 3 questions about that.
I got it, but I think I can decipher them.
Okay, answer that one.
Okay, all right. So when I was in private practice, as a defense attorney for 25 years, the family recovery court is a place where you could send your clients. And while they were there, they would be assisted in driving, if they had a car breakdown, if they had to get a job, they would test them for drug and alcohol abuse. And once they got through the program, that program, because I did so much domestic, focused on getting their children back to them. So if there's an emergency SINA case, a mother is picked up for shoplifting and, there's a 3-year-old in the car. Well, there's an emergency hearing suddenly because mom's going to jail. She's got maybe a heroin or an opioid issue. So she can't function. Or if the child is born, it's got drugs in the system, they yank that child. Court used to call me over because the child, even if the child is 2-year-old, in those proceedings, the child has to be represented. So I'd get a call from the court in the afternoon on Thursday going, look, we're holding court. It's an emergency hearing. Can you come over and represent the child? And I would just pop over there and do that. But I would also have clients who needed to go through the system before the court would feel comfortable returning their children, first in a supervised capacity and then unsupervised, with the goal of getting those children back to the parents. Family Recovery Court does a phenomenal job. It is expensive process in the sense that we use, and I'm trying to think of the numbers, it's around $400,000 from the federal, and the Judiciary Court of Office Solving Problems gives about another 160. These programs are costly, but they're very effective. If I've got a client, I put into that program and she successfully completed it, I know the person from the program within the courthouse can go tell the court they're testing negative. They can get their kids back essentially in a slow process, sort of phased in visitation, but that's going to be successful. Without that, the process really doesn't work because some people are at such a stage in their life, they don't have the capacity to come back from it. Teen Court's another program. We've been operating that for 12 years. It's run through the Sheriff's Department. Ms. Vaughn does it. From my perspective, if you watch it, they have young juveniles come before the court, or they could just be young adults who've got a criminal case, usually first time, usually misdemeanors, and a group of their peers gets to insert what the punishment will be, more than a judge could do. A letter to the parents explaining why. Sit on a court system and judge your peers so you understand how the system works. Go do a ride along because you wrecked your car, and you go do a ride along with an EMT group, and they go out and they come to these scenes, and now you get to see it firsthand. Things like that, which work better than our court systems who go, it's a $200 fine, next case. Teen Court really, because they're judged by their peers, get to the heart of the matter. We've had it, again, as I said, for 12 years. We've got these systems, and in Charles County, they're working. So we've got a lot of progress in that case. The one thing that we probably need, and we've got this set up in the works, we need funding for it, but it's a codependency court. It addresses mental health issues as well as drug and alcohol addictions. Not that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, we were getting people and sending them to try to avoid having them incarcerated during the COVID era. I send somebody over to Calvert County. I get a call 2 days later. Look, we're a drug rehabilitation. He's got mental health issues. We can't keep him. He's got anger issues. And back he comes. And I don't have options because we don't have those resources here in the county. But we've set up a PowerPoint. We've got a committee. We've got a funding grant request. And if that grant request comes in, we will set that up. And that'll be one of the major gaps that we haven't addressed, but we are in the process because everyone knows it's badly needed. So, So we're doing things. So I didn't mean to ramble on that, but those are good points.
Actually, in the kind of answering my second question with regards to that was, what additional specialty courts did we need? And also, this being appointed, actually, what work have you actually done towards the funding of such courts? So you kind of touched on that. You could add to the last one.
Well, so as judges here in Charles County, we've got a committee. We've drafted up a PowerPoint, which I've reviewed, and there's a request for a certain amount of money. It's small because you've got to get these things funded, but it's well over, it's in the $200,000 range. But as I ended, like Family Recovery Court, it's a lot of money because they pay people full time and they have people supervise individual cases. That requires funding. So we've got that in the works. We will be able to submit that. if that is submitted in part through the Office of Problem Solving Courts, through our judiciary statewide, they will fund it, I believe, because everyone recognizes the need. So we are getting there. There's been a little break because we're shut down. But I think we'll get there, and we'll probably get there in the next 12 months.
Okay, awesome. So with that, I'm going to go ahead because we were talking about the courts and talking about the people that came in. I'm going to go back to Jackie's clarification on her question regarding how is impartiality each ensured. So she had two comments after that. She said, how do you ensure that all decisions are fair? We have seen same sentencing that is clearly nonpartisan. And then she said, clearly non-bipartisan, but appear to be partisan and based on race. Some races get stronger sentences versus other races for the same offense, which leads to why I told her I will hold her comment, because one of the questions that I have is demographic differences in sentencing concerns has been expressed by the citizens of Charles County. What do you believe contributes to this concern, and how can they be reduced or eliminated?
So that is a great question. Maryland incarcerates high numbers of African American, primarily male, and another judge had sent me a link on an article. It's in the top percentage of the nation for that, outpacing some southern states by numbers that would be both shocking and disappointing. So I think two things. What you ought to do is you've got to gather. I don't think in Charles County, because I know the judges, because I've been in the system for 30 years, that we face that problem to the extent it is across the nation. But if you remember back when drunk driving was not really an issue, right? People, the officers, like, park your car and call somebody, right? You're a mile from home, go on, drive home. That has changed because the perception was we were killing 50,000 people a year in drunk driving accidents, really basically the same number we lost during the Vietnam War approximately. And people are like, we've got to stop it. We've got to impress upon the legislature how we do it. So what they did basically is they got the stats. They had Mothers Against Drunk Driving sitting in the front rows of all these cases as they went through, and they would gather facts. And if someone was killed in the DWI and the person wasn't prosecuted to the fullest extent, they would report that. They reported in the press, they'd report it to the legislature. And once they gathered the facts, the legislature said, we're going to toughen these penalties, or we're going to open more drug and alcohol programs. It's a problem, and we have to address it. The same with the issue that we're dealing with here with regard to African-American incarceration. Step one is monitor the system. Get in the court systems when they're open again and look at the numbers. And if there are disparities, make those disparities public, because everyone wants to solve the problem. Not everyone necessarily knows how to do it or what needs to do it to solve it. But if you gather the facts by sitting in the courtrooms, then you move forward, because once the legislature gets pressure, they act. They don't act without it. So everyone knows there's a problem, but you've got to lay it out so this can be a legislative response. That's what I think.
Well, I would think that with the statistics being available that you were even able to reference in the articles that are going out, the fact actually remains that it has been monitored. And apparently, in order for people to gather these statistics, you know that there is definitely a problem. The issue is that so many people are not seeing any kind of resolution for it. You know, so besides monitoring and documenting, which has been what we've been doing for a long time in this situation, do you see any other suggestions about what can be done in order to eliminate that? Because that's a big problem, and it plays into a
huge problem.
Things.
So this is what I would say. A gap between the time that you sentence somebody and the time they enter their plea. 90% of all criminal cases enter a plea saying, you know, I made a mistake. I've committed the following, event. So if that plea and sentencing takes an hour, that's not enough time. And if I extend sentencings out past 60 days, I got to fill out paperwork saying why I did it. But why that person is pending that sentencing, he's got opportunities to do things. Maybe he finishes up a class at school. Maybe he does a program. Maybe he explains that now I'm back in school and I've got a job. When I first committed this thing, I had a drug issue, but I've now addressed it. Give the judge the opportunity to say, look, now you've given me something that I can work with. And just by way of example, when I had clients in the juvenile system, they'd be wandering the hallways, getting in fights, in the school system. There'd be problems at home. I'd go in, we'd work out a case. They would go into Steedham. They'd be in Steedham for 60 days. They'd come back in to meet with me. They'd go from, C's and D pluses, all of a sudden, because they're in smaller classes with more personalized teacher interaction, now they're getting B pluses and some A's. And you see them, they're like a different person, right? The parents are proud of them. They have a sense of accomplishment. So you go in there and you say to the judge, look, he's a junior, but if you can leave him there in those classes for the next year and a half, he's going to graduate with a sense that he can achieve. They can't do that. They go, he's going back to his high school because he's getting good grades and everything's going well. And now the whole thing turns around because we do not have the resources to have a school where someone has a reading or writing disability. If they're in that program and in jails, about 80% of the people incarcerated suffer from a learning disability. If we had the resources to identify them, keep them into schools so that they graduated from high school with a better sense of self, a little higher self-esteem, that would go a long way to addressing the issues that we face really on a daily basis in our judicial system. We need resources there. So that's just by way of example. They're out there, we don't have enough of them, and we don't have them for long enough. It's one of our issues.
Okay, good morning, Rose. And we have a question that comes into the topic we're on, but we had a comment that came in reference to when you were speaking to mental health. So I'm gonna get that. Maria Thompson Farham said mental health support, like Judge Devine is discussing, is very important. As a teacher and a parent of 3 children, I have a great deal of contact with children of all ages, and it's evident that we do need more help with mental health issues. Thank you, Judge Devine, for understanding this as well. Another Charles County resident, Derek Jones says, so it sounds like community pressure helps to push a narrative into one direction or another. The larger question is, why is that pressure needed when it's a matter of right versus wrong on things that are already known?
I think that's a legislative issue, but like teen court, which is a diversionary program, the legislation that is required, which is funding. The reason I pointed out Family Recovery Court and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that it basically takes to run it, if you're going to set up programs for specialty courts, you need the legislation to fund them or they don't work. You can say, well, we'd like to do this court, but if the judge doesn't have alternatives to sentencing, then he doesn't have them, and he needs them. Every judge does. Judges know that if a person's basically got a drug program, putting him in jail for 30 days isn't going to solve it, but putting him in 6 months in a rehabilitative setting is 1,000 times better. If you could do that before the sentencing phase, that person's not going to jail, and they're likely not to come back to court again. That's the goal, but if that program's not out there, you've tied the judge's hands to some degree. And so community pressure pressures the legislature. Legislature produces the money. Unfortunately, that's the way it works.
Right. So I don't know if we're going to really get a clear answer to this. We know this has been a problem for a long time, but I think that part of what Jackie communicated and part of what some of the other Charles County citizens communicated too, that even in that case, 30 days charge or sentencing for this and nowhere else to go. The thing is that based on demographics, a lot of times you're finding that a 30-day sentence is not being issued based on the race of the person that's being involved. So that's kind of where more the problem is that even if there isn't something as an alternative for the judge to direct the person to a diversion program or something, in cases of, particularly when it comes to the Black and brown community, more often than not, a sentence is being given whether there's an option or not. So that's just something that truly needs to be worked on, and is a real concern across the country. You know, it's not just in Charles County.
No, it is a huge concern, and I think it's something that you got to maintain focus on. I don't know that it's as much of a issue in Charles County. Again, as a defense attorney for 25 years, I've been in front of judges for 25 years. I don't feel as if that's an issue that I have to address when I appear in front of our judges.
Okay, great. So let's move on to next one. Inexperience that you have. Part of your experience and the fact that you've also been in the position probably means, I don't know for a fact, but most likely most candidates get some kind of endorsement. What endorsements have you actually received from any community? Well, I hear a lot of the community, they've you've got endorsements on this show already that we shared on this. You know, the citizens are endorsements too, but as far as community leaders, organizations, or public officials, what endorsements have you received?
Well, I've some of the delegates, like C.T. Wilson, have endorsed me, and Bobby Rucci, and, you know, people like that who I've known in the community. The state's attorney here in the county has endorsed me, as well as our sheriff. And I know that that gives people some concern, but I would say this. I have tried more cases than almost anyone in the county against the state's attorney, against the sheriff. And I think their endorsement is an issue of ethics and the quality of my hard work more than anything else. They endorsed me before I was a judge, and they knew that my position was to do the best I could for my clients who had violated the law for 25 years. So they didn't have no idea how I would be as a judge in the sense of taking their position or not taking their position. But they did know that with regard to my clients, I always did the right thing. I worked hard and I was ethical. I know them personally and I know them professionally. So their endorsements, just like the delegates' endorsements, are something that I appreciate.
Okay. We got, I'm going to come back to a question about that, but we have Miss Michaela Wilkes chiming in. She says, it looks like it's a disagreement from your comment regarding disparities in Charles County. She says the disparities are very present in Charles County, and she feels that you need to address that more.
Okay. So other than me, who's running, we have 3 judges in the county. Judge West, who is our administrative judge, who is African-American, Janine Carrington, who is African-American, and Judge Greer, who is white. So I don't feel, and again, I know these people personally, I've practiced in the court. I don't feel that they hand out sentences based on anything but what they think is justice. I don't think in this county, those judges, the 3 of them, who are predominantly African-American, view race as a factor in the way they sentence. It's just not what I think. I don't think our 2 African-American judges are biased towards African-Americans, and I don't think Judge Greer is. I think, and you see all these issues exploding across the country, where there's conflict with the police, there's conflict within communities. We are lucky in this county that we don't have issues to the extent. Can you always help tweak things on the corners? Yeah, but I don't believe our judiciary does anything but what they think is fair, and they do it in every case. I'm proud to be a part of the membership of this judiciary, and I think they're all individually and collectively decent people.
Thank you. Hey, Spin City. Thank you. She says, great topic, Tasha. I appreciate you being here this morning. So it looks like criminal justice is just a hot topic. It's just a hot topic.
Yeah.
Criminal justice reform anyway, So when it comes to it, whether you view it as an issue in Charles County or not, if you're able to speak to it about criminal justice reform across and the need across the country, what's your viewpoint regarding on the actual need to do reform and how concerns from both sides, how concerns from both sides can lead to a discussion that actually unites both sides in a harmonious resolution?
Sure. So one of the problems I think that creates conflict is a perception on both sides of this issue, a perception by the police that maybe a neighborhood is dangerous, or a perception within that neighborhood that the police aren't really here to help. So there have been big pushes for community policing in which you hire people within a community who know the community. So when they show up and someone's doing something wrong, person doesn't leave in handcuffs. They go, we're going back to talk to your mom because I know you're not supposed to be out this late at night. No good's coming from this. Then the mother goes, look, that officer helped me, helped my child. And both the mother and child, or the father and his son, or they break up. These events, if everyone is in sync, can go in the right direction. And as we see across the counties of Maryland, but across the state, if both sides are not in sync, the ability to have community policing breaks down immediately. So there's got to be a reestablishment of that. For a long time, we had officers on bikes in the community. I think driving through a neighborhood in a police car has a different impact than riding your bike up and watching people play a sport and talking to some of the parents and doing that. That builds trust. Maybe then if someone's child is in trouble, they can call that police officer and say, look, I can't keep him in at night. I've called a number of things. I don't know what to do. If that relationship, which is a relationship that used to exist in this country, is reestablished between community and officer, then a lot of these problems, not all of them, start to go away because both recognize the other as someone who's there actually to help. If you view the police as an occupying force and the police believe that they're viewed as an occupying force, it is incredibly difficult to come in and talk to witnesses, to solve problems before they go awry. So it is that relationship that has to be reestablished. People have done it before. They've done it in the past. That's why we get community policing, because we've had these issues in the past. We reestablish that. Everyone wants to solve the problem. That's not the issue. The issue is trust within communities. So I think that's where we're headed, and hopefully we'll get there.
Okay. Last week, I had the pleasure of interviewing from Montgomery County, Maryland State Senator Will Smith. And during the interview and talking about it, because he's a huge advocate for police reform, him and I share the same viewpoint that the utilization of the word defund the police has too many meanings for it, and that often instead of people embracing the idea that we have a problem that we need to resolve, instead one side takes it as being offensive that you're trying to harm the police, and the other side takes it as that you're missing the message. But I think that the wording is the problem. He did mention, I would think and listen to you talking about making sure that people understand that there aren't occupying forces on both sides. Sometimes to rebuild relationships, you have to have a neutral party that comes and gets involved in it in order to make it in between that relationship. So one aspect that I think is good with regards to the word that I don't like, defund the police, because we need our police officers, our good police officers we need, is the idea that there's a lot of funding that's being put into the police system that's not necessarily needed. They talk about different states having automatic weapons and all this other kind of stuff. Why do you need that? do you agree, or would you think that it is a good idea to use some funding towards having people who are professionals within the mental health profession to
That's what I was going to say.
and act as those people? Because one thing that Senator Will Smith said is that you don't send a therapist to go take care of a bank robbery no more than you can send a police officer to go handle a child that might be having difficulties because they've lost a father, or their father has ended up going into jail too early for a minor crime or things of that nature. So what are your thought processes about, because we have to figure out, even in your specialty courts, you can't go out and get grants for everything, but if there's funds that are there that are astronomical that you could pull from, why would that be considered as hurting the police or not a good idea to try to help us get to that point that we start mending those relationships?
Look, I think he is exactly right. So as we downsize our military, as we come out of these overseas wars, a lot of those equipment, things of that nature, whether they're weapons or they're high-powered vehicles, get turned over to police. And when you militarize police departments, the theory that if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail sort of comes into play. But if you can reallocate resources so that you're like, hey, look, on Saturday evenings in this area, we have mental health issues because they're homeless and maybe they're on drugs. But really the issue is we need somebody there who can go, hey, look, I know the situation. We're going to have to bring this person to a hospital, which means you could do it electronically by a remote evaluation, or you could have someone at the sheriff's department, the police station, all the time saying, I'm on call. Our hospitals all have people on call, right? You go, hey, it's a psych inpatient evaluation. He's being committed. Where is he going? He's going to the local hospital, who are required to have somebody on call to evaluate him to see if he's a danger to himself or others. A sheriff's model could do that. You could set it up through the rescue squads where they show up and go, look, this person's having a psychotic issue. I mean, you're going to do damage depending on how you respond to it at this moment. Police are there on the scene, but the person's not responding. Police can't figure it out, but you've got a mental health resource. Either EM shows up all the time because they do the Narcan, right? So we have other people show up. If they had resources and embedded a mental health person, they go, look, we're going to take this person to the hospital. There's no reason to process him. That's not what's going on. He doesn't even understand fully what you're saying, and that's why he's not responding. That suggestion is an excellent suggestion. That would be one of the ways that people would think their community is being helped, because law enforcement has a lot of aspects, but one of the aspects has to be that they are perceived when they show up to help mental health. And there are other ones that can show up, like when they give overdose patients, or they take people who really have drug and alcohol issues so far behind the pale that the criminal is the minor part of it, and they can treat them without the jail becoming directly involved. That's a pretty positive thing, both for the community and for aspects of policing.
Okay, let's see. SETI Tesla said it's an appropriation issue, not get rid of. Exactly. Appropriation of funds versus getting rid of. And I don't think that everybody that uses that term looks at it as abolishing the police at all necessarily. And one thing that I thought it was funny, because I caught it in my replay, because I do go back and look at the replay it shows, is one of the things that Will Smith had mentioned, that he actually believes that probably a lot of officers do actually agree with the basis, just not the title, or how some people act like about abolishing people, because they just got too much stuff to be doing in addition to being a police officer, That's right. I mean, we want them to do 100 million things on any given day without enough resources, meaning mental health counselor, or someone from a hospital, or a paramedic who can deal with the issue. You're doing midnight shifts and you roll in there and you've just transitioned from day shifts and you're exhausted. And now you've got to deal after 8 hours with somebody and you can't figure it out. If you've got that resource to come in and say, look,
It's a mental health issue. I got that. And the person comes in and they solve that problem. Now we're sort of doing when they say defund, really what they mean is we need more corroboration between the two sides so that these issues, which aren't necessarily criminal, can be handled appropriately. I think communities are looking for that. I'm hopeful with all this energy, the communities are going to get that. But it does take legislation that is not just overly broad, oh, we'll solve the problem. Come in here with specifics, like the mental health courts. When we drafted up that for funding, we specifically said, this is who we're going to address, this is why we have the need, and this is how it's going to solve it. The legislation needs to do that because the problem is real. I think they can if they're motivated. And we'll see. We're in the midst of it.
Okay, Maria Thompson Farhan said the same issue with misappropriation of funding occurs in the public education system. Very frustrating. Great idea to change the way that some funding is used to use so that it helps in more important ways. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's true. The example we're talking about, the police, extends to dealing with children who have reading and writing disabilities. I mean, in 25 years of defense counsel, with regard to kids that really caused an issue, not too many with straight A's. It's a self-esteem issue. And if you can get them through school, you can get them on into a productive life.
Okay. Okay. Yes, I agree. Going back to the endorsements, and you spoke to that you don't think that people should not perceive the fact that you have the endorsement of the sheriff or the state's attorney as a concern at all, because basically you're going to do your job regardless, and you have done your job with regards to them in cases over the past year and a half. Do you see any way of using the fact that, I would assume if you have an endorsement with them, you have some kind of relationship with them? Is there any way that you could utilize a relationship to contribute towards the resolving of the issues dealing with police reform, or what's viewed as unfair or imbalance in sentencing based on demographics? And then also we want to talk about the school to the prison pipeline as well too. Get your viewpoints on that. But is there any way that you plan or have made an attempt to try to use those relationships with them to gain the balance that everyone needs to have with regards to issues and concerns?
Sure. I've had those discussions with both of them, in the sense that the problem is real and the question is how to deal with it. I think we've done a good job in this county because we haven't had any flare-ups that often other counties do. When you're dealing with a sheriff's department, with the Maryland State Police, with the legislation that is addressing that, I believe both those individuals, from my experience with them, have been supporting it more or less. I know they may have different views on how to move forward, but everyone agrees that there is sort of a situation, and that situation has to be addressed. But when I say statistics have to be shown, I feel like legislation, if it's very broad and says we have to treat everyone fairly, that's fine. Everyone knows that. You need specific solving problem courts to address alternatives. We in the judiciary think if there's a problem, then the best way to do it is keep people in these problem-solving courts and address drug and mental health issues. That is the way the legislation could support it for the judiciary. Support it for the school. My example of Steedham is the same way. We're seeing people who have not been able to successfully navigate the school system. If it's 80% of the people that are incarcerated is because of frustration through learning, reading, and writing, again, those resources there are the way to solve that problem, but you can't just put money into funding schools. You have to make it specific. We need a school to address children who have been kicked out, who can graduate through this program. It's got to be specific, or it'll be something we talk about in 10 years saying it didn't work.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and entertain this comment here.
Okay.
Oh, wait, before I go there, Derek Jones says, sounds like even judges have their hands tied sometimes due to legislative red tape, funding, etc. That's yet another huge reason to become involved in local elections. Absolutely, Derek. Touch base on that. Matter of fact, and oh my God, we are like at an hour, but we are going to go over with Derek bringing up elections, guys. I do want to point out, wait a minute, let me go back to, I want to point out and I want to run the tracker that sends information about the general election, because even myself and being a chief election judge, I was unaware or just became recently aware, and actually have seen some advertisements that still have old information, but early voting has been changed, guys. So you read across the bottom of the screen, our general election, of course, is going to take place in Maryland on November 3rd, 2020. If you're viewing from another state, I encourage you to go to your state election board to look at that information. That's from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And early voting will be conducted now Monday, October 26, 2020 through Monday, November 2nd from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. And if you need to get more information on that, you want to go and visit elections.maryland.gov. Other important information I'm going to touch base on, is that to vote by mail, you must request a mail-in ballot from the State Board of Elections or your local board. Your request in Maryland for a mail-in ballot must be received by October 20th, 2020. So again, I see some people from Chicago and South Carolina on. Go check with your state board. Again, early voting, as I said, will be held for 8 days, beginning October 26th through November 2nd. And you can vote at any early voting center in your county that you live on. And this, guys, is actually a change for 2020 during this upcoming election, is that the election day is November 3rd, but also you're able to go and vote at any election day voting center in your county that you live in. I actually had a call into the board yesterday to get clarification because I saw that on their website. I took this directly from elections.maryland.gov. And because usually if you go to a different precinct than you're registered at, you're told that you can go to your assigned precinct, or you're told that you have to do a provisional ballot. That will not be the case on election day for 2020. So I think that's some very good information to get out there. Make sure you spread the word. In addition, you still have the opportunity to register to vote or update your voting information. The deadline for that is October the 13th, 2020. And another thing, you also need to go and verify that you are still registered to vote. Anything can happen in this system. In fact, there's some people that don't realize that if you set out a couple of elections, the bottom line is that you could fall out the system. You'd be like, I have people that come in and say, I have a voting card. Why does it show that I'm ineligible to vote? And sometimes that's because you just simply haven't voted in a couple elections. And another important thing that you still got time to do, because, you know, we talked about this, this whole thing with COVID and concerns that people have, and the fact of how that's going to impact people working at the polls, guys. There is still a very dire need for people to volunteer to be poll workers. So with that, I want to cut to one quick video, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to entertain one comment in the chat, finish out a couple of more questions, and then also give Judge Devine the opportunity to share whatever he thinks we haven't covered, because we've covered a lot.
Covered a lot.
We'll be right back with you guys about the importance of going to volunteer and become a election supporter.
Poll workers are very important because they help facilitate the voting process.
Most individuals who work elections are over the age of 65. With the COVID-19 pandemic, that is a population that is incredibly vulnerable. That is why I signed up and receive trainings to become a poll worker.
I signed up to be a poll worker. My mom actually brought it to my attention. She presented it to me, letting me know that it would be a great opportunity to make some quick extra money, as well as to get to know the voting system. And once I got all that information, I turned it right over to Ty, and I said, hey, do you want to do the election with me?
As a poll worker, it was my job to ensure everyone coming to vote was registered and received the correct ballot.
We go in and set up all of the equipment to make sure when voters come the next day, their experience is as pleasant as possible. Why should you become a poll worker? One, it's a great way to give back to your community, and it's also a great way to see democracy in action.
I would encourage more young people to come out and work the election polls and bring your friends.
It makes the time go by faster,
Sure
too.
does. It makes a difference when poll workers reflect the communities in which they serve.
Okay, guys, so don't leave your girl Tasha alone at the poll working, okay? We need more people to volunteer. Just contact the election board and put your name in the hat to come out and support, where there's others who traditionally take that civic duty very serious, but due to COVID, there's concerns. And they do put things in. You know, you get your mask, you get your visors, you get your gloves. They have people going out to do sanitizing of the stations as each voter leaves the ballot area and all this other kind of stuff. So, you know, just go ahead. We need more people out there. All right, Judge, I don't even know.
Well, hey, can I make just a little pitch here for a second? So we're talking about COVID-19 and the situation there. October 5th, that week, we're opening it up. We're going to have witnesses in the courthouse, and we're going to have jurors. So we have a QR code. When you walk up, you can put your phone. It'll be outside the courthouse there. You put your phone, put it in the picture. It'll bring up a couple of questions. You answer those questions. They'll show a green check mark, and you'll move through without picking up a pen, without answering questions on paper. It will speed up the process for us. And every juror, and we're going to have 40 jurors that week on the first day, when they get their notice, that notice has the same QR code. They can check it before they come up. They can answer the questions online, show it to the officer. After we take their temperature, they're going to speed through. So I'm just giving that as sort of just something to know. It'll help them. They'll have to interact less. It'll help us at the courthouse.
Now, what happens if they answer one of the questions and it's not a favorable answer? Do they turn them around, or what happens in that case?
Yeah, well, they will not be getting a favorable entry. They're not coming into the courthouse. That's the way it's going to go. I mean, if they've been exposed, they're running a temperature, you know, there are a number of questions, you know, it's CDC guidelines. They're not allowed to enter. That's how it's going to be.
And unfortunately, at the polls, that is not the option. Anybody that comes to vote gets the vote, but you just have
to vote at the polls.
Be as safe as you can. And we, again, I can't stress how short we are, because they've actually called me 4 times. Are you still in? And during the last election, it's the first time the night before, I had 8 people who were supposed to be there canceled the night before. So we really do need those people who are young and
or nervous,
healthy. Exactly. Absolutely. Okay. So let's go back to the comment section, and I'm going to entertain and read this one comment here. Kathy Jo Redmond says the difference between his opponent and him is everything. People cannot make very intelligent decisions between him and his opponent if they don't know the difference. Anyone not making up their minds based on race, creed, religion, or gender, such as myself, need to know their differences. Given the opportunity, I would have asked all 3 as a subscriber to the system of fairness, and said things that I am seeing is that nobody wants to ask the tough questions, and neither do I. And it looks like on YouTube you ran out of room for all your characters and comments. Kathy Jo Redmond. The questions that are being asked today by the audience and the people who are participating, as well as what I have put on my paper, is the only thing that we need to do to give people the opportunity to seek the information they need to decide whether or not they want to cast their ballot for Judge Devine or whether or not they want to cast their ballot for his opponent. You're the only one that's trying to point out all this other extra stuff right here, right now. And all we're doing is trying to give out the facts and the information. As everyone knows, his opponent was on my show too. So people are able to go back and pull that replay and they could compare it. And then people make their decision based on their personal needs. So we don't get to decide who's smart, who's intelligent, and who's not. We just hope that everyone does their due diligence and make sure that they get the information that that is required. Okay, so that's it for me entertaining your questions. All right, so now we'll go to, and you know what? Because of that, I am going to. I think there's an order that I want this to go. Of course, we know that we lost an icon in the justice system with Chief Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing last night. As I was watching it, because I didn't learn about it till about, I was coming in for a late dinner and saw it on the news, didn't even know about it. And there was a lot of talk about her philosophy and her ideologies. And coincidentally, I had a question about that because I had to go and do a little bit of Google, and I don't know if I really still got the answer, but the difference between philosophies and ideology and what exactly is a judicial philosophy. And what I found through the few articles that I had is that most judges, of course, they're going to utilize their belief systems to make rulings in the courtroom. And a lot of times those rulings in the courtroom is considered as being a part of their judicial philosophy, which actually I saw came in different categories based on the different levels of the court system that I was seeking the information from. Some refer to a philosophy of activism, a philosophy of restraint. And I think the activism, I don't remember all of them. You could explain it if you want to explain it. And then sometimes they said it could coincide also with political views of being conservative, liberal, or moderate. So what I wanted to ask you for everybody, how do you describe or classify your belief system, and how does it impact or deal with your rulings in the courtroom? I mean, is my belief system, or is it that it's a mixture or whatever? Speak to your belief system and how you have used it over the past year and a half and plan to use it going forward.
Oh, a couple of things. You were talking about the passing of Supreme Court Judge Ginsburg, and Chief Judge Roberts is giving sort of a eulogy type recollection of her. And I think they two tend to be on the opposite sides of the political spectrum. But I think respect and mutual productivity there is hard work and the sort of your judicial temperament. And that is on the Supreme Court, but it's more so in your day-to-day, how you deal with litigants in the court and how you deal with attorneys in the court. I'm supported by both Democrats and Republicans who have literally tried cases against me, or I've represented them. And I think they're supporting me because they've seen that my work ethic and my judicial temperament is something that they would feel comfortable with, whether I was representing them or they were appearing in front of me. As I think some people know, both my parents were lawyers. My father served in the Kennedy administration under Bobby Kennedy. Being raised in that atmosphere leaves you with the impression that judges and lawyers that are working hard can impact our society in ways for decades. Those experiences have always stuck with me. I like to think that that's how I view my courtroom and the people that appear in front of it. Hard work, good temperament go a long way in fastening what is the right outcome for every case and for every litigant. My experience through my father and my father's work has been one of the things that I like to think I take into the courtroom every day. So my philosophy is really work hard, be polite, which is really temperament, and do what you think is the best thing in every case. Not always the easiest thing, but what is the right thing and what is the best thing to do for the litigants. And I think that's sort of how I've always treated my practice, but also treated my courtroom. So that I hope that answers the question.
I think it did answer the question. Now I told you that I was getting and paying attention to things that people were posting about you since I
Yep,
knew
you were
here. I also was paying attention to things that you were posting, and I need to take you and I both off the screen. Well, how do I do this? How do I do this without? I don't think they'll hear me. I need my technical person. I am going to just put this quote up, and I'm going to read a post you made about this quote. So it's going to kind of block you and I here. So here we go. Oh, let me take something off. This is a first time to use this. Let me get my Hanging with Your Girl Tasha off so we can see the whole quote. Okay, so you made a post. The quote states that live so that when your children think of fairness and integrity, they think of you, by H. Jackson Brown Jr. Mm-hmm. You shared that on your page, and along with it, you had this comment. This quote represents how I live my life, both personally and professionally. With an upcoming judicial election, it is important to talk to people who you know, in capital letters, who know the candidates, such as attorneys and employees at the courthouse. Don't just vote because a cousin's friend recommends someone, you heard something that may or may not be true, or because you like a certain hashtag. Make sure to do your own, in capital letters, research and get the facts in capital letters. If you have any questions, concerns, or are unsure of my stand on an issue, please reach out to me by email at keepjudgedivine@gmail.com or send me an instant message. So as you guys know, as I go back, I'm going to put back up how you're able to contact Judge Devine, to roll across at the bottom of the screen as soon as I find it. Okay. And my question about that, a lot of times when people post things on Facebook, other people who are viewing it may take it for face value. Other people try to make their own attempts to interpret it, and sometimes they interpret it with good intentions, and sometimes they interpret it with bad intentions. Because I know the nature of people and the fact that some people may have got some negativity out of there, I want you to speak to what place that comment came from.
Well, I think like most of us, and I certainly, I try to live my life as if my parents were watching. And I think most parents would hope that their children would do the same. So that quote really sort of sums up the sense of what I hope is not unique to me, but to most parents, that they hope their children will view them when they're making tough decisions in their lives as a guiding light, a guiding factor. And when you are in a political campaign, you will hear negative things because it's the nature of politics about you. That person may be a certain way, and I've talked to politicians who said, I may not run again because what people have said either about them or their family. And I get that. That is a reminder that this is an important position. It affects our community, our families, our children. If someone said to you, oh, I heard about that person, he does X, but that person has no personal knowledge, you should go and check it out for both candidates, for all candidates, because rumor, innuendo, or general assumptions are not the way to vote. It's not how we do it in this country. We watch shows like this, we investigate, we bring our reason, our thought process. Maybe we go on their website, check their record. Having been in the community this long, it's hard to find a part of Charles County where I don't know somebody. So the purpose of that, and I hope it wasn't taken negatively, is, hey, look, go and find out about this candidate through his posts, through his website, through people who know him. And you will think that he is going to do a good job, that he's been doing a good job, and he's someone you should support. I think that is the gist of that. And again, I hope people don't take it in any negative light. It is be positive, do your research, and vote because it's so important to our country.
And you know what? I think that's important when it comes to every candidate, no matter what position or what level of government that a person is running for. I actually saw another comment that came through, one with Kathy Redmond, who said that your mother was a proponent of civil rights advocacy as well. I believe was my takeaway from her looking at her background, Judge Devine.
So my mom grew up in Baltimore, went to law school at night while working, then came down to the Department of Justice here, and was sort of part of that era in which civil rights and the Department of Justice were tied, essentially. And she was one of only a few women in her law school class, because women really just didn't go to law school back then. But she understood what those feelings were when it pertained to whether women could get ahead based on their ability or other factors that might be holding them back. She experienced that as a practical matter. And so in the Department of Justice, at that time, everyone was essentially aware of it under Bobby Kennedy. People just knew that that was the role of both judges and basically civil rights people that were lawyers, but also not. It was just part of what the country was, but particularly what part of the Department of Justice was during that era. So it was kind of a nice era to really be a part of and to know that it had been so effective in this country. It was one of the great stepping points forward for our country. And it was nice to know that my parents had been a part of it.
All right. And the second comment for Kathy, I'm not going to pull up on the screen, but I'm going to summarize a few of the things that I saw for a minute. She did say that beautiful quote about what you think children, what your children think about fairness. And it makes me sad that many of the children in the county where your campaign is now taking place are absolutely going to learn that first thing. And she says it's going to be learned by color and gender and all this other stuff. Now, I think that Judge Devine, in his comment and even in his response to speaking to what place he came from, he pointed out that a lot of times that people are being sometimes giving out false information and speaking to be truth and acting as if they are the voices of the different candidates. And I'm not just speaking to the judge race right here, but Kathy, I want to point out to you that you made a comment about the way the opponent is running their race. And I'm gonna apologize to you, Judge, because I just have to do this. I have chosen to remove certain people off of my Facebook feed, which includes you, Kathy Redmond. Also, I had a straight discussion with Michaela Wilkes too. I removed her off my feed because I feel that sometimes when we think that we're helping and we have opinions that are viewed as vinegar by a lot of people versus honey, that when you do have good candidates, that you muddy the water where people are not able to make a clear decision. And I think that both of these candidates need to be viewed on what they say and not what other people say. And that's just your girl Tasha, bam, being authentically me. I believe that sometimes we hurt people more in the name of saying that we're trying to help them. So, last thing, Judge Devine.
Yes.
Outside of your outside of race, hashtags, assumed party affiliations, which we know that judges don't get into affiliations.
Right.
Why do you believe that the citizens of Charles County should vote for you?
Well, this is what I can say. In Charles County, I've been here trying cases and working within the judiciary, representing my clients, trying cases, doing all the things that a judge has to know and understand to be effective. I work hard every day to get into the courtroom and understand what the right outcome, understand the litigants, and understand what is best for the parties. I can't understate that enough. It is important to go in there prepared, have experience, and do the job in a way that is productive for those litigants, that one opportunity they may have in their entire life to experience the court system. It may be civil, it may be criminal, it may be sort of a domestic case that has complications on property and custody. Those are very, very important issues to everybody involved. Experience matters in those type of cases. And if you have someone who's been doing it for 30 years and no one says a negative thing either about their work ethic, how they've handled their cases, what they've done, then that's experience you can count on and you can trust when your case or your family's or someone in the neighborhood comes before that court. You can feel confident that we are going to do, as a court system, well by that person because that judge has the experience, both on the side of representing people, both on the side of the judiciary where I'm sitting now. There'll be another judgeship opening in a couple of months, and we don't know who will get that. Right now, our judiciary is doing an excellent job, and I hope that my experience is one of the reasons. So with that, and you've heard a lot about me in this interview, I hope that you will vote to keep me in this position so that all the litigants and our court system continues to work as well as it is today.
Okay. David Drake on YouTube is saying no more questions. If he types a question, are you willing to take one more question?
I certainly will take another question.
I don't know who David Drake is, but David Drake, type and type quickly. Let's see what we get here. And is there anything else that you think that we didn't cover that was important that you share with anyone that comes to your mind? Because I don't want you to leave the broadcast and be like, oh, I should have said X, Y, Z.
All right, well, I'm just going to make another. So our legal clinic shut down in the basement as a result of COVID, but we opened it back up. You can call the hotline basically Monday through Thursday, 10 to 2, and call in and you can get free legal advice. It's important that you get it before you start a case if you're not going to have a lawyer. So I just wanted to make that pitch. It's one of the important things that we do.
Okay, David said he asked the question earlier, so I must have missed it. So I am scrolling back up to see if I see David's questions. Okay, here we go. Are you concerned okay, let me bring it up on the screen. His question is, are you concerned the pandemic will have a significant impact on the voting process? Are you aware of any steps the county may be taking to ensure the process remains legitimate and fair?
Well, as we discussed earlier, on the 26th of October, the early voting starts. If you have concerns about that, my understanding is there'll be drop boxes all over the county. If you're worried about the mail, you can do it online, but you've got to give certain information people aren't comfortable with. You can request it. I've done it that way. They'll send it to me in the mail. I'll fill it out and I'll put it in a drop box on the day of the election. I feel like that is the safest way to do it. If you've got worries that the mail, because the mail service is overworked, I don't have too many concerns. I think if you drop box them, once you filled them out, we should be okay in getting a count quick and efficiently. So that's the answer to that.
All righty. So I scrolled and I did something else. I hope that this has proven to be informative, and now the citizens of Charles County has enough information about both candidates in order to make a decision. Do you have any upcoming events or anything else where you'll be speaking again that they should be aware of?
I am doing a live town meeting next week, so I'll do that and I'll get that out on my Facebook and let people know that they'll call in or type in or whatever means they want to discuss things with us that are going on in the current judiciary and our climate, how the courthouse will be opening back up and things like that. So I'll be having that town hall meeting coming up next week, and I'll get that out. Okie
dokie. And with that being said, we're going to close out. I'm going to ask you, a lot of times people hop off, but we're going to go ahead and talk backstage after this is over.
Okay, and, absolutely.
Let me mention, guys, I always got to tell you what's going on next week. Hey, that Postpone is rescheduled. Yes, we have special guest R&B singer and actor from the hit movie Lean on Me. You guys remember Joe Clark, Mr. Nitty Green. He will be in the studio next Saturday at 11 o'clock. So be sure to tune in for some feel-good stuff. And just remember that if you are interested in being a featured guest on Your Girl Tasha, you can reach me on 240-545-5695 for any booking information. And if you didn't take an opportunity, go to Your Girl Tasha on Facebook and like it, or go to YouTube and subscribe. And with that being said, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Devine, wish you and your opponent the best of luck. I believe that the citizens of Charles County are very capable of exercising their vote to put the person who they believe in the position to allow you to remain or change it if need be. Whatever may happen, I trust that they have the information that they actually need right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yes, it was a blast. So here we go. Going out, guys.
Hey, ain't nobody hotter. Thank you for tuning in with your girl Tasha. We handle business. We ain't about to gossip. Here to uplift ya. Now it's time to boss up. Hey, tune in. Nah, you can't miss. Making sure that you get your daily wake up list. We yelling bam. Good vibes, good energy. Bam. Being authentically me. Shout out Little Mo and Trinity. That's mini me. Gotta keep it in the family. Hey, your girl Tasha. YGT. Time to get it hype. Hey, this is what you need. Hey, go ahead, turn it up. This my jam. Being authentically me like bam. With your girl Tasha. Hey, let's dance. Being authentically me like bam. Yeah, now it's time to get it. Wake up, time to handle business. Yeah, hey, now it's time to get it. Wake up, time to handle business. Yeah, we about to get it live with your girl Tasha. Hey, like bam. Let's go.